what has been your biggest return?
I think the biggest one would have been the ACT. I think I had about 1% of the supply at like $25,000 market cap.
What was your initial capital again?
I just had like 10 mil tokens, so that's like 1% supply
Okay.
at like 25.6k if I'm not wrong. So that should be around $250, $300.
Okay.
And it got listed on Binance. The valuation of that coin went from 25,000 to 25 million in just a matter of like 4 hours if I'm not wrong.
4 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a little speechless. Somebody looking to enter this space, say he or she has 1 lakh worth of capital to deploy. How would you suggest that they, begin their journey?
Interesting. So I would recommend people to not specifically put the entire capital together. The best way of investing it from a long term is probably doing a daily SIP or a monthly SIP for that matter of a specific amount. But even before you invest, go and study about the tech. Like that's what people miss out there. Like people are just looking for the shiny new tokens out there rather than putting time out there. So study into it, because this asset is gonna be volatile. Like you're happy today that BTC is at like 100k. What if it's at 60k 2 months down the line? How would you be able to cope up? The only way to do this wealth creation wala part is to have this portfolio consistently invested. So if you wanted to invest like ₹1,00,000 today, probably start with 1,000 rupees a month or like 5,000 rupees a month and consistently do that rather than just putting it at one point, because you will never be able to time the market. You have to understand the fact.
Yeah.
Because the first thing about investment is that you have to just learn being the noob.
Right.
By just being the noob, you could be actually profitable.
Fair enough. Yeah, I completely agree with what you just said. Let's dial it back to when you first got into the space, right? What was your journey like? Maybe you can elaborate on that a little.
Like honestly, just by luck. Back in 2017, I was just interning at Amazon. Back in IIT Bombay days, I was in third year. My roommate was researching into blockchain tech. So he just took my debit card and invested into BTC and ETH without me understanding anything about it.
2017, right?
Yeah,
so what
2017.
What was the price of BTC and ETH roughly around that time?
I think BTC should be around $3,900.
$3,900.
Yeah.
And today we're sitting over
about 100k.
And ETH?
ETH was about $170, $180.
Okay.
And obviously price went from those $3,900 of BTC itself to about 20k. That drove me to more curious about it and started looking into it more deeply. But honestly speaking, didn't explore it to the fullest. At that point in time, I was more of a hodler trying to understand what's going into the space. It was predominantly after, say, the 2019, 2020, that's when I got very, very deep into the space where I was completely on chain, looking at every new thing happening out there.
Right. I want to know a little bit more on your portfolio side of things. Do you have exposure to traditional assets like stocks as well? And can you give us a breakdown of how that looks?
Yeah. So overall, if you look at the portfolio, I would say about 10 to 15% should be in traditional assets, rest in crypto.
Okay, that's a pretty sizable amount in crypto. So you do have conviction then in this ecosystem, right?
Absolutely. I think we are pretty early in terms of adoption. And if you look at any other tech, be it the internet or .com bubble, if you look at, or traditionally when futures and options were born, or the early days of stock markets in the world out there, there were cases like these where there were 80% corrections out there in early days. And that's pretty normal because there are very limited number of market participants over there. And so it's very easy to move the prices because of the narratives out there. But as these market participants become broader, it becomes fairly difficult to move the prices anyway. And that's probably one of the reasons that we are seeing so much more stability in terms of even on the crypto side of the things compared to what it used to happen like 4 years before out
Right.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. Um, my question that I have, and I think I asked this to anybody who's in the space, is why crypto?
I think my entire conviction is towards being early into the space. Like most of these portfolio that I'm talking about probably didn't start with being, say, 85% into the crypto. When I started, probably it was about 20% into the crypto and 80% in the traditional assets that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went into trenches, being there for enough point in time, spent enough time, built conviction on what people are building, what actually is happening into the space. You have to read a lot of stuff. Like I've like spent 16 to 20 hours every day on chain for the last 15 months at least,
Right.
if not more. And prior to that as well, I've like dedicated at least 6 to 8 hours every day. So it's a lot to do with the studies that you do, the kind of things that you see people building, and then build conviction on top of it. That has to do with it. On the other side of the things, like in terms of the conviction of how the ecosystem is growing, I'm not really sure if you're aware about Hyperliquid for that matter.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So Hyperliquid, 8 months back, no one knew about it. They just made a $15 billion worth of asset just by being very simpler into the space.
Yeah.
Just listening to the user and making a product which has a product market fit.
What, since you've been in the space since like 2017, 2018, what is some of the golden tips that you would give to somebody coming into this space? Purely, not from the tech side, just coming in as a retail investor, dipping their toes here. What would you say?
There's a very weird philosophy in most of the retail investors today. They're not looking for 30, 40, 50% returns out of it. They are only looking for next Shiba or the Pepe out there.
Yeah.
And that's probably leading to most of the bleeds into their portfolio. So it's a lot more than just an investment. There's a rule that I follow in crypto that you can only make discretionary more returns into crypto space by just being early into a specific ecosystem, early into a specific idea. Think of the new ecosystems or the layer ones that are being built.
Right.
Think of the stuff that is being built, the application layers on top of it, or the other, even the memes on new chains for that matter.
Right.
First is be early.
Yeah.
Second, most of the screenshots that you see from your favorite KOLs or the favorite influencers trying to sell their courses are fake, absolute fake.
Okay.
Like it's humanly impossible to print those kind of money, and if you are actually doing it, you would not flaunt about it.
Okay.
It's more to drive the hopium, drive exit liquidity, and just to get people to believe into that they can just start with like half Solana and like end up with say 10,000, 20,000 Solana. I'm not saying that it's not possible. It is possible, but it's not as easy as what people are just telling you on Twitter, that I invested into this token and this went 1000x, you should do it. It's not possible to do it so consistently. And trust me, I'm doing it. I've been deepest into the trenches, have had most of the alphas that these guys are talking about before them as well. And I can fairly correlate that. Don't listen to these. Just build conviction and start looking at this as just an investment.
I think narratives is something that drives this space to a certain degree, and also being early into a narrative, right? Let's just touch upon the meme coin super cycle that we're seeing right now. Pump.fun. We're also seeing Moonshot on Dex screener, right? Where do you see this going? Like, is this just a bubble that we're in with the meme coins, or do we have a community that we need to keep an eye on?
I think if you historically see, specifically on the meme side of the things, what exactly is an intrinsic value of a meme out there? It's actually the attention economy that you are tokenizing out there.
Yeah.
If there is an asset today that people specifically believe into and vibe upon, there will be an intrinsic value to it. Now, on the other side, is this a bubble out there? I have a slightly different opinion. I believe that this is gonna be the biggest ever casino that people have ever seen, and probably the fairest casino out there. And that's one of the reasons that people are vibing upon on chain on these platforms, because that's the kind of returns that people always expected out of crypto. They are fine losing $50 out there, but if this $50 could potentially become 5,000 or like $50,000, that's the kind of risk to reward that they are looking at.
Yeah.
Whether they will be profitable or not, that's a different strategy, and that's one of the reasons that it works. It gives people hopium of doing it. If it's right or wrong, it's up to an individual who is investing into those to decide. But I feel if this entire narrative is it keeps on going, and with all the digital adoption that we have, there are always new memes coming up every day on all the social medias out there. So those will obviously be tokenized, and some of the memes would get a lot more attention than compared to the other memes out there. Probably as memes lose attention, they might draw down in the value out there. So specifically, if you think from memes investments, I would consider people to think of it as a lottery ticket or a casino gambling. To be very honest, like to be very blunt, I'm not saying that it's bad or right. It's up to you to decide, but I would recommend not doing it with your entire portfolio. Like even if you feel like doing it, probably do it with like 5% of the portfolio for fun.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason there's a fun to the name of pump.fun, because they wanted to make it like a fun platform rather than just a trading platform. There are n number of trading platforms which do is pretty well in terms of people doing it.
What other narratives or trends are you bullish on or you're keeping an eye on?
One of the space that I'm pretty bullish upon is the AI agent space, because that's just giving a new flavor to the memes out there. Like if you look at memes historically, like at least till now that we have seen, they're pretty much static. Of course, you could have n number of different memes created with the same templates and stuff like that. But think of memes which could have their own context and like have their entire vibe out there on top of it, and evolve using the AI agent thesis out there and create new content in general. That's what I'm bullish upon. And AI agents in general, like today, at least at Only Calls, we have automated most of our DMs out there, most of the customer queries, most of the feedback collection on the beta that we have released and stuff like that. So historically, if I had to build Only Calls today without AI agents, it would have been a 20-member team at least. But today we are just 5-member team.
It's absolutely fascinating, man. And I think we didn't touch upon this earlier, but I'd like to know what you're doing in this space as well. What are you building right now?
Yeah. So just to give you some perspective, I've been degening for quite some time. And we've been trying to build an on-chain hedge fund, a hedge fund which is specifically just run by AI agents.
Okay.
Because that's the best way of trading that I feel,
Right.
rather than discretionary doing the trades out there. So if you look at the hedge fund, there are 3 pillars to it. The first is the alpha generation part. The second is, of course, the execution engine, like how well you could execute a trade. Because some of the times these alphas that you're getting are probably just valid for a few seconds. That's how you are trading these alphas to execution engines. It's really important. And the third part is the risk management engine itself. Right. Where how much allocation you have to do to a specific alpha so as to manage your drawdowns and even the upsides for that matter. So that's the entire plan, and that's the entire vision that we have been vibing upon for quite some time. So Only Calls is the first leg of this entire puzzle, which is the alpha generation piece. So with all these data streams that we had collated across chains, we think that we have the best alphas, and that's what folks here also think out there. So we're just creating a lot of AI agents on chain, off chain, on socials to collate these alphas, vet them through different set of AI agents itself, and create alpha out there. And we released the beta this week itself. The performance has been good in terms of the adoption on chain. Like the other reason of launching it out loud was just doing an organic fair launch, just getting the vibes of Hyperliquid back then. So fairly launched out there at 80K. Right now sitting around 4.5 mil, if I'm not wrong. Um,
4.5 mil.
yeah, with about 14,000 holders. So it's just the folks believing into the vision out there, because like I'm building in public. So this entire stuff that we have been building is pretty much to do with the fun part of it, rather than just building a company per se,
Yeah.
doing crazy experiments on top of AI and then vibing on top of it.
I think, we've had a very insightful conversation. I feel like I've learned a bunch just by listening. And I think before closing off the pod, I want to know, where do you think crypto is going? Let's just keep it shorter time frame, like the next year.
I think there are two parts of it. The first is, of course, if we get 10 consumer apps, this could become as mainstream as your internet.
In the next year.
Yeah. And if not, it's going to be another Ponzi out there, where another cycle, and then people will keep waiting for another 4-year cycle of Bitcoin halving for to kick in and get some more returns on top of it. And trust me, I want the first one to happen a lot more than the other one, because it, like, everyone enjoys these kind of times. The only way that we could actually grow into the space is by making sure that we are consistently delivering value to the users and building towards what users actually want to use, rather than just creating valuations on paper with no liquidity into the market.
Yeah. I think on that note, it's a very good way of sealing the pod. Thank you so much, man, for
Yeah, man.
coming on.
Cheers.